Observations and inferences. So this is a topic that we kind of started looking at in class today, and we will continue finishing it up tomorrow before we do our next lab. So the observations and inferences comes in the analyzing data section of our lab report. So this is going to be data that we collect when we do our experiment, and then also the inferences are going to kind of give us the meaning for that data and tell us what it means. So in the notes tonight, I'm going to be doing some of the notes on the side, and then we're going to start the transition to you guys writing your own notes. So I'll set you up with the first part, and then I'll let you know when you're going to have to come up with your own stuff partway through. So let's get started. So like we said, like we kind of mentioned in class, an observation is any information that we collect with our senses. So it's information collected with the senses. All right, so touch, hearing, smell, sight, and taste, which we don't use that often in lab, but you can definitely have an observation that's a taste. And we have two types of observations. The first type is what we call quantitative. Give an extra line there. Quantitative are measurable or countable. And the way that I remember this is that quantitative has an N in it for numbers. Right, so quantitative has an N for numbers, because a quantitative observation involves some sort of number. It's a counting measurement, something like 3 meters long. You know, the table is 3 meters long. He has 4 marbles. That object weighs 50 kilograms. The temperature is 35 degrees Celsius. All right, it's important to know that quantitative observations, you can use a tool or instrument to help you collect this observation. Right, so you can use a thermometer to measure 35 degrees Celsius, and that's still considered an observation. Right? Just because you're using an instrument to get a precise number measurement of it doesn't make it an inference. This is still an observation. That's a factual statement. All right, our next type is qualitative, and these are describable. And they're not measurable. Doesn't make them any less true, right? But it's just not a number not a number value. So the flowers are red. Can't argue with that. They are red, right? And that we're using our sight to pick that up. But that's not a number value. I can't, red is not a number. It smells like fresh baked cookies. This food tastes bitter. Those would be qualitative observations. Again, factual statements collected with our senses, but since these don't have any numbers, you can't count or measure them. We would consider those qualitative observations. So we get all these observations from our experiment. We've got all these numbers. We've got all these measurements of some kind. What does this all mean? And that is where our inferences come in. And so this is our last slide. This is a pretty short little note. So your next main idea is going to be inferences, but I'm going to let you guys figure out what to put for the notes. So, all right, so don't write that. Don't write this. But an inference is a conclusion or deduction based on your observations and past experiences. So it's basically giving your observations meaning. We're giving meaning to our observations using our past experiences to kind of help us figure out what that inference might be. So if you observe that you hear people screaming, you smell cotton candy, popcorn, and hamburgers, and you see a lot of people, you can make an inference from that. You're going to give those observations meaning, right? A logical inference might be that you're at a carnival, right? And if you think about it, right, if you're at a carnival, you'll hear people screaming, you'll smell cotton candy, popcorn, and hamburgers. You see a lot of people, right? Some of you also may have said that You're at the circus. Again, a totally reasonable inference. So an inference, right, the more observations we get, the better our inferences can be. If you just had this first observation, your inference wouldn't be as good. If all you had was, I hear people screaming, there are lots of inferences you could draw from that. But the more observations you get, the better your inferences can be. That's kind of an important topic that may want to make its way over here. Just a hint. The more observations you get, the better your inferences can be. All right, please make sure you write a summary of your notes at the bottom, and I will see you in class tomorrow to do some observation inference practice and work on another lab.